Good morning. My name is Jill Thompson, and I'm your worship associate this morning. Welcome to those of you who are here with us in person at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke. We extend a special welcome if you are joining us for the first time, and we also say welcome to those of you joining us on YouTube. For you virtual folks, if you would like to share something for the Lifelines part of the service, please put your request in the chat feature in the next 15 minutes. Our minister is the Reverend Walter LaFleur, and today's sermon is Healing is Change. And lastly, as a reminder for all of us, please silence your cell phones. Our words of welcome: whoever you are, whomever you love, however you express your identity, whatever your situation in life, whatever your experience of the holy, as you come seeking love, your presence here is a gift. Whether you are filled with sadness, overflowing with joy, needing to be alone with yourself, or eager to engage with others, all who welcome all are welcome here. And our covenant: we commit to supporting each other with respect and direct communication as we work in community to explore spiritual growth and to be a force for good in the world.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Carrie Morgavich. I'm the music director, and we're going to start with something called meditation on breathing. So I'm going to get you involved, and we're just going to breathe in and breathe out. I'll not do that. And breathe in and breathe out. And breathe in and out. And breathe in and breathe out. And you can keep breathing, and we're going to sing.
Happy rainy day. Our opening words come from Parker Palmer, from Courage to Teach. He writes, as a middle-class North American, I'm unlikely to have an intimate relationship to the poor or to the experience of poverty. But it's crucial that I feel my accountability for the poor and their plight. When we reject that with which we cannot become intimate, our lives are diminished. We need a standard more encompassing than intimacy by which to affirm that a relationship has meaning. Our chalice lighting. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do.
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, O Spirit of love.
Good morning. I'm Jessie. I'm the Director of Lifespan Faith Development, and I'd like to invite our young folks and the young at heart, if you choose, to come forward. Just come on and sit down. I've got something to show you this morning. So, can someone tell me what this is made out of? You can pass it around. Yeah, wood. It's wood. Go ahead and pass it around and take a good look at it. Just keep it going. Is it all one color? Pretty much. What do you think? Is it all one single color? Depends on the tones. There's lines in it. What else? What do you notice about those lines, Damien? I'm going to put you on the spot since you're the one holding it.
It gets darker each line.
It gets darker each line. So what if I told you that when you look at wood and you see all those lines, that's also a good way of telling us about that tree's life. I have an example here. Now, this is not a tree. This is rolled up paper, although a tree, all these different colors would be pretty cool. When a tree grows, it starts at, have you seen like a little baby tree before, a sapling? How big are they? They're tiny, they're little. How long does it take a tree to get like this big around, do you think? A few years. How long do you think it would take a tree to get as big around as some of the trees that we have outside? Yeah, there are trees that are hundreds of years old. And every year, most trees, this isn't every tree, but most trees, every year they get a ring, like all these different color rings. Now, this blue part in here was when the tree was very young, and it's pretty fat. It was getting a lot of water. It was getting a lot of care. It probably grew up on a farm, or the imaginary tree. It was being very well taken care of. But sometimes rings are a little bit different. Now, if we look at this piece of wood, some of the lines are different. When we take a slice out of a tree, we can see all those lines that can tell us both how old it is and how its life was. Sometimes when it's a very thin line, it might have had too much water or not enough water. Sometimes when it's really jagged, maybe something happened to the tree. A bear scratched it or a car ran into it. That's called trauma. When things like that happen to a tree, it shows in those, we call them tree cookies. When we take a slice out of a tree, it shows up in that tree cookie, that tree slice. And just like that tree, we have things that happen to us every year. Sometimes we get really good care. Sometimes we have a little bit of trauma. Sometimes we have to spend a whole school year going to class online. And that's completely different than going to school in person. And that shows up in our tree cookies, in our life story. But just like that tree, we keep growing and we keep going and we keep learning things. And that's what we do. We take those experiences and make them part of our lives. So we're going to go upstairs and we're going to make our very own personal tree cookies, share what you want to share on your tree cookie, and we'll have them after the service for people to look at. Y'all ready to do it? All right, let's go.
Everywhere.
Our reading today is called Building Better Secularists by David Brooks. As secularism becomes more prominent and self-confident, its spokesmen have more insistently argued that secularism should not be seen as an absence of faith, but rather as a positive moral creed. Secular people value autonomy over groupthink. They deepen their attachment to this world instead of focusing on a next one. They may not be articulate about why they behave as they do, but they try their best to follow the golden rule, to be considerate and empathetic toward others. Secular morality hinges upon little else than not harming others and helping those in need. Secular individuals have to build their own moral philosophies. Religious people inherit creeds that have evolved over centuries. Autonomous secular people are called upon to settle on their own individual sacred convictions. Secular individuals have to build their own communities. Religions come equipped with covenantal rituals that bind people together, sacred practices that are beyond individual choice. Secular people have to choose their own communities and come up with their own practices to make them meaningful. Secular individuals have to build their own Sabbaths. Religious people are commanded to drop worldly concerns. Past secular creeds were built on the 18th century Enlightenment view of man as an autonomous, rational creature who could reason his way to virtue. The past half century of cognitive science have shown that that creature doesn't exist. We are not really rational animals. Emotions play a central role in decision-making. The vast majority of thought is unconscious, and our minds are riddled with biases. We are not really autonomous. Our actions are powerfully shaped by others in ways we are not even aware of. If secularism is going to be a positive creed, it can't just speak to the rational aspects of our nature. Secularism has to do for non-believers what religion does for believers: arouse the higher emotions, exalt the passions in pursuit of moral action. Christianity doesn't rely just on a mild feeling like empathy. It puts agape at the center of life a fervent and selfless sacrificial love. Judaism doesn't just value community, it values a covenantal community infused with sacred bonds and chosenness that makes the heartstrings vibrate. Religions don't just ask believers to respect others. Rather, each soul is worthy of the highest dignity because it radiates divine light.
Many of our ilk, smart, well-educated, liberal religionists, and those who define themselves as non-religionists, can have difficulty with some of the foundational stories in the Bible. I include myself in that category. For example, it seems strange that God would establish rules to deny his children knowledge of good and evil. So after wrestling for some time with myself, I've come to reject the notion that it's always the woman's fault. Well, I'm not comfortable with the concept that original sin passes on through every generation. Perhaps we shouldn't be so quick to throw the whole story to the curb. There is an alternative, less literal, more liberal interpretation of that story. I take the story to say that human beings are inherently flawed, broken, some might use the term. As you may have noticed, we human beings are not perfect creatures. Each and every one of us has physical and/or personality defects. We all make mistakes. We humans, we cheat, we lie, We steal, some certainly more than others. Not all of us are engaged in activities that run counter to the Ten Commandments or even secular law, but if not yet, each is capable of doing so. There's another form of brokenness common to human beings, common to humanity in general. We can be self-denigrating, either because we've accepted someone else's quote unquote negative evaluation of us, because we have chosen to believe a thought or an idea of how we are supposed to be. We compare ourselves to others or to the culture or mental concept of what's quote unquote appropriate, what's right, what's deemed ideal. Because we all have physical, psychological, and emotional maladies and are all subject to self-denigration, we're in need of redemption, folks. We're in need of forgiveness. If we are to have a life worth living, we need to be able to be saved and resurrected from our negative beliefs about ourselves and those near and dear to us. I think it's fair to say that we all generally believe in redemption, believe in forgiveness, a second chance, because we know we all make mistakes. We know we are not perfect. Often we are much more generous, much quicker to forgive others of their foibles, much more generous with others than we tend to be with ourselves. I suspect it has something, maybe even everything, to do with this word called acceptance. I'm much more likely to accept that you are not perfect than I am to accept my own imperfections. There is this thing called pride, which often blinds us to our own imperfections and get in the way of admitting, gets in the way of acknowledging them, those non-perfections. There's also an identifiable segment of the human race that demands forgiveness or a second, third, sometimes fourth chance, while being largely unwilling to grant the same to others. Theirs is an egotistical or arrogant orientation to the world. Such people might be thought of as having a deficit of humility, not humanity, but humility. Being overly generous with forgiveness to others while neglecting self. It's not a formula for well-being. Neither is being quick to forgive oneself and slow to forgive others. There is a certain balance, this balance that's required if we are to be healthy, if we're to be whole, if we're to live a healthy and a whole life. Certainly so, if we do that in the presence of others. Acceptance and forgiveness are often essential components of a healing process. It's good for us to have these reference points, acceptance and forgiveness. It's good as we go about living our lives that we can touch back and forth with those. It's important because we are all broken or wounded and in need of healing. And I mean no offense by naming that for us. There are so many ways and so many times in our lives that we become wounded. We carry any number of these wounds with us through much of our lives. We are all regularly in need of healing or becoming more whole. Now, maybe we ought to think in terms of that healing part is part of being whole. Sometimes we can identify the source of our wounding. Sometimes we don't recognize the nature of our wounds or even that we've been wounded. Sometimes we know, but find it easier not to notice, not to think about it, not to tell others or even ourselves. It happens to everyone. Some are better at it than others, but it happens to all of us. Being busy is a very good way to not notice and to keep from noticing. Some of us were wounded during our early years. Maybe we were weaned too soon or not held enough. Maybe we felt abandoned or insufficiently loved. Maybe we were regularly the brunt of family jokes. Maybe we were abused. Some of us didn't hear well or needed glasses during our early school years and were made to feel badly about ourselves. Some of us just never seemed to fit in with the other kids or to be liked by the other kids. We didn't feel accepted or appreciated for who we were. The ways in which we can be wounded can make a never-ending list. Each and every one of us can help to create that list. The list might include being too short, being too tall, flat-chested, or overly developed, too skinny, too fat, too black, not black enough, too shy, too slow, uncoordinated, not smart enough, not pretty enough, not likable enough. Maybe we simply lived on the wrong side of the tracks. The list can be endless. The list we all know we have had in our own lives. As years go on, maybe we come to understand that a parent is an alcoholic or untrustworthy. Perhaps our parents divorced. Maybe we flunked out of school. Maybe we were fired. Maybe we experienced unrequited love or infidelity. Maybe a parent or sibling was ill. Maybe they died. Perhaps it is us who became debilitated, had a stroke, heart attack, diagnosed with cancer or some other disease or malady. You know, the list can go on and on and on with greater or lesser specificity. There are many ways we can become wounded and be in need of healing. So what do we do? What do we do when fate kicks you in the head, as a friend of mine once asked? How do we live with such wounds? In truth, some amount of crying often helps. Khalil Jameson, a consultant I worked with, and who was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful role model, used to say, don't interrupt somebody when they're crying. Tears are a connection to the soul. Don't interrupt someone when they're crying. Tears are a connection to the soul. Yet, and still, all things in moderation continues to be a good admonition. I've long respected the 12-step process associated with Alcohol Anonymous. It offers a credible roadmap to healing, to becoming more whole. It's a template, it's a model for change. In my interpretation, it begins with a focus on humility. Humility, not the all shucks kind, genuine humility allows us, requires us, in fact, that we take our guards down. It humanizes us. It requires that we acknowledge that we are not in charge. We are not in control of outcomes, neither yours nor mine. Humility lays the groundwork for what I call acceptance. Humility lays the groundwork for what I term acceptance. Acceptance moves us closer to being real. My dad used to say, facts are facts. Facts are facts. Acceptance is a way of engaging truth, that which is real. It requires that we engage the what is rather than what we might prefer. Acceptance requires that we make a choice. We choose not to focus on what's right, what's wrong, what's appropriate, what's good or bad, but rather focus on what is. Simply, what is. Acceptance requires that we move away from judgment, move away from blame, and move away from evaluation so that we can see the bareness of what is. Acceptance is not a one-shot deal. It requires that we make the choice to deal with what is over and over and over again. Acceptance is not the same as like. Acceptance is not the same as approve. In fact, the hardest work can be to accept that which is ugly, that which is painful or unwanted. Acceptance simply engages what is as it is when it is. It's not a surprise to me that confession is closely associated with humility, often done on, it's not a surprise that confession is closely associated with humility, often done on one's knees in a religious context. It's a form of acceptance. If we can say our truth out loud, it makes it more real. It gives our truth substance. Confession brings our truth into the world. It's no longer hidden or lurking behind pride. I'm convinced the Catholics are on to something important by formalizing a process of confession. They seem to understand the value of confession. In many ways, it's an unburdening or door opening, an invitation to a next step. When we confess, we increase the potential for forgiveness. When we confess, we increase the potential for forgiveness. I don't know if confession is a prerequisite for forgiveness, but acceptance most surely is. Accepting the truth of what is lays the groundwork, but does not ensure forgiveness. Forgiveness is an elaborate, multi-step process that I'm not sure anyone can fully delineate, plot, or map out. Somewhere embedded in forgiveness is the ability, a willingness to forgive self. Ability, a willingness to forgive self. If we can forgive ourselves of being human, forgive ourselves of our humanness, for feeling pain, for feeling anguish. If we can forgive ourselves for feeling lonely, hurt, or wounded, we might come to a place of being able to forgive others. One doesn't simply flip a switch. Getting to a place of forgiveness can take time, and I believe it's a process. These are all steps on the road to healing. Steps on the road to healing. And healing is a route to wholeness. Wholeness is not about perfection. It's not about the unblemished. It is not even about well functioning. Wholeness is a byproduct. It's a byproduct of a genuine acceptance of that which is, an acceptance and a willingness to engage what's real. We can be whole and poor. We can be whole and unemployed. We can be whole and be in pain. We can be whole and have only one leg, or breast cancer, or be on our deathbed. Wholeness is ultimately about accepting the truth of what is, accepting life as it is. I don't know if one can ever be fully whole in our lifetime, or even in human form. But I do know there are degrees of wholeness. One can become more and more whole with time, effort, consistency, more whole with intentionality. Isn't there a story out there about rubbing a rabbit or something? Perhaps our objective, at least in this lifetime, our purpose is simply to become more whole. Maybe that's our collective purpose in life, to become more and more and more and more of who we are already, who we are meant to be, how we are meant to be. One manifestation of wholeness is the willingness and the ability to give. and not need a return reward. In deference to our interconnectedness. A manifestation of wholeness is the willingness, and the ability to love without bargaining. So often, we want to be liked, approved of, thought well of for what we give. We want to be seen as a good person, a generous person, some form of a superior personality when we give to others. In plain language, we often want something in return for our giving, as if there's some bargaining going on. Likewise, folks, with love, all too often a bargain. All too often our love has hooks embedded in it. While we may not know it, think it, or even believe it, often we treat love as a bargaining tool. I will love you if you love me, if you care for me, if you make me happy, if you share my values, or, depending on the individual. Who knew this four-letter word, love, can be so hard? When we can love without bargaining, when we can give without needing a reward, without needing anything in return, we will know we are on the path to wholeness. When we can love ourselves with our imperfections, with our frailties, with our disappointments, with our wounds, then we know we're on the road to wholeness. When we can love ourselves without contingencies, we have become more whole. You can't do it otherwise. When we act with an awareness that how we live, what we do, and how we do it has an impact on our perception of ourselves. When we act with an awareness that what we do and how we do it has an impact on the world around us, even if we can't see it. When we can do those things, we're on the road to wholeness. Well on the way, in fact, to wholeness and a positive impact in the universe, on the universe. Humility, acceptance, confession, and forgiveness are all touchstones on the road to wholeness. They each provide fodder and an opportunity for what we might call spiritual development. And without spiritual development, how will we come to know who we truly are? Not the personality person, not the person with the title, not the person in the order of family, but who we truly are. How can we move beyond what we believe and the how it should be on the road to wholeness? Without a fed, nourished, and developed relationship with our spiritual core, what do we use as a reference point for wholeness? What do we use as a reference point for life? Real, vital life. How can you know? How would you know? How will you know if you're coming closer or drifting further away from this thing we call wholeness, your own individualized wholeness? I leave you with the notion that it's not an easy question, but the answer can save your life. The answer might provide a ticket into heaven. Amen. Our offering this morning is one of the 4 offerings that you voted on the last congregational meeting. Jill?
Our offering today will support the Bradley Free Clinic. The Bradley Free Clinic has been providing healthcare to the people of the Roanoke Valley since 1974. As my husband says, that's not quite 50 years since he too was established in 1974. While the clinic itself has gone through many changes, including a brand new behavioral health wing, their mission remains the same: to provide compassionate and comprehensive healthcare services for the underserved by partnering with high-quality professional volunteers. The Bradley Free Clinic is able to promote a community of healthy and productive people by providing accessible and high-quality healthcare services, including medical, dental, pharmacy, behavioral health, and rehabilitation services. That's where I come in. I'm a physical therapist, and I've been volunteering at the Bradley Free Clinic for 5 years. When I first started, it was just me and one occupational therapist providing rehab care. Over the past 5 years, we've built a thriving volunteer rehabilitation department with 3 physical therapists, 1 occupational therapist, 2 speech therapists, a massage therapist, and an acupuncturist. Our patient load has quadrupled in that time, and we've helped many patients improve their abilities for work and self-care activities. In addition, we're in the process of developing a student-run physical therapy clinic in conjunction with the graduate students at Radford University Carilion. The students come really excited to begin using their skills in the real world, and the Free Clinic is excited to bring a new generation of enthusiastic volunteers on board. One of my favorite things is watching the students arrive for their first time with this preconceived notion of what the clientele at the Free Clinic is going to be like and how they're going to care for these others, these people on the fringes of society. And then they leave with this realization that the patients pretty accurately reflect their neighbors and their family, and sometimes even literally their classmates, because like many paths, graduate school doesn't often come with healthcare attached. Your donation today will support our mission to provide musculoskeletal rehabilitation to the underinsured clientele of the Bradley Free Clinic. With your help, we can assist our patients in improving their functional status, whether that means returning to work, being able to care for their families, or simply managing to get through their day independently. Thank you for your generous donation to support healing and healthcare in the Roanoke Valley.
This is who we are. It is good that we have gathered, and this will help us make an impact in the larger community. Blessings.
Good morning. I'm Robert Wallenborn from the Caring Committee, and one of the things the Caring Committee does is we record the current joys, concerns, and milestones of the congregation as lifelines. And if you would like to tell us about a joy, concern, or milestone to be shared, you can call or email a member of the Caring Committee, or call or email the church office, or normally you can write it in the Lifelines book, which is missing today. Normally it would be on the altar Sunday morning and out in the alcove beside the name tags during the week. Okay. Let us enter into a time of reverence together into this space of love and hope. And we bring these joys and concerns. Beth Carruthers is concerned that her great niece may need heart surgery. And Gary and Heather Mason are excited to share about the arrival of Elizabeth Elsie Jamie, is it Brem or Bream? Brem, okay. On January 27th. She is the daughter of Gary's daughter Maggie and son-in-law Paul Brem. Elsie's big brother Alex is still undecided about the new arrival. And Hildy Getz had previously been scheduled to have open heart surgery this Friday, 2 days ago. She's fine, but just due to something at the hospital, her surgery was postponed until tomorrow. Beth Griffin shares her Aunt Helen, who we previously reported on a couple times. Her Aunt Helen had a stent put in each leg in early December and then had to have another surgery in early January. And unfortunately, she has passed away. Beth writes that her Aunt Helen was the best historian of their large extended family, that but she kept in touch with all the relatives. So we keep Beth and her extended family in our thoughts and prayers. Okay. And now I share these words from Thich Nhat Hanh. If we are peaceful, if we are happy, we can smile and blossom like a flower, and everyone in our family, our entire society will benefit from our peace. If you would like to light a candle for something that is on your heart this morning, I invite you to come forward during the music meditation, and may the warm light of that flame bring you peace. Please use both sides of the altar. Prayers be heard and our hearts be restored.
Join me in a time of prayer, meditation, and reflection. In the name of that which is holy and true, we're not alone. We cannot be fully self-sufficient, for life is too interconnected with the all. We each play a role in this connectedness. and the unfolding of the universe, whether or not we choose it, whether or not we seek it, whether or not we acknowledge it, we and all of life is one. Imagine a world in which each person that rises in the morning says yes to this interconnectedness.
I have only 2 announcements today, which seems suspiciously light. So if I've left anything off, please let us know. Listening circles are returning. Listening circles is a facilitated, covenanted small group program of 7 or so people that meet twice a month for approximately 1.5 hours. The program will run from February to May. Each meeting has a reading and set of questions to which each person responds while the group listens, hence the name Listening Circles. It is not a discussion group. It's intended to encourage spiritual reflection in a safe and supportive environment and to deepen relationships within the congregation. See the last weekly newsletter for specific times and register with Susan in the office. And our youth are hosting their annual fundraiser of Soup Bowl Sunday on February 12th. They are requesting crock pots of soup. If you would like to make some, please sign up with Jessie. And if you would not like to make some but would like to eat some, please come. They'll have soup to sell that day, so you can take some home for lunch. Anybody else? Okay, that's it.
May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all with the separated, be in us and among us now and always.
Well, that's okay. I'll just talk about. No. This says it's by Ron Jeffers, who arranged it, but it's actually a shaker canon. And the words are, I will bow and be humble, I will bow and be free. Those are not the words. I will bow and be simple, I will bow and be free. I will bow and be humble, yea, bow like the Lord.
I will bow and be simple. I will bow and be free. I will bow and be humble. Yea, bow like the willow tree. I will bow and be simple. I will bow and be simple. I will bow and be free. I will bow and be humble. I will bow like the willow tree. I will bow and resist the truth. I will wear the easy yoke. I will bow and be broken. Yea, fall upon the rock.
I will bow and be simple. I will bow and be simple.
I will bow and be simple. I will bow and be free. I will bow and be free. I will wear the easy yoke. I will bow and be broken. I will wear the easy yoke. I will bow and be broken. Yea, fall upon the rock. I will bow, this is the token. I will bear the easy yoke. I will bow and not be broken. Yea, fall upon the rock. I will bow and be simple. I will bow and be free. I will bow and be
fall upon me broken, yea, I'll fall upon the rock.